Hello, you'll be listening to a podcast called The Stories We Tell Ourselves. Everything you will be hearing are experiences from the main character, Adriel Hernandez's past. He will be talking about the events leading up to the death of his grandfather and what happened after through the lens of his mother. And now off to the story called The Triumph. And yes, there's a question mark after triumph. And now, Adriel, off to you.
Hello, I wanted to inform you about my son Adriel, and I wanted to tell you about his experience losing his grandfather. They were really close. Adriel became the love of his grandpa's heart, and the two of them did many things together. His grandfather would come straight home from work to see his newly born grandson. He would pick him up in his arms for as long as he was at our house for, and he would never let him go until he left. As time passed and Adriel reached his teen years, they both spent many mornings together, going to church and then to the bakery. Then they went home and ate the bread with lemon tea. That was their favorite thing to do together. They used to do it every day in the summer of 2013. He also spent time with his grandfather on holidays like Christmas and Thanksgiving. Sometimes his grandpa would wish for his grandma not to be home, so that when they went to the house, they could go and eat somewhere. He would say in Spanish, "Ojalá que tu abuelito no esté para que nos vayamos de parranda," which means, "Hopefully your grandmother isn't home so that we could go to cruise somewhere." Adriel was happy with whatever he did with his grandpa. The important thing was that they were spending time together. All of this ended quite soon on January 4, 2013, when his grandfather went to the hospital. My dad has been hospitalized many times before, and Adriel had a bad feeling about this one. It wasn't until a few days later that Adriel visited the hospital. On that day, my dad looked really well, and Adriel was really happy to see him. He gave him a big hug, and all of us talked. Two of my sisters were with us. It was my turn to sleep and take care of him at the hospital. My cousin couldn't drive him home because he was already home, making sure that the people that were installing the shutters did their job. My sisters took him home, but it took a while for them to leave. As they were heading into the car, my dad began to have a heart attack. He was very tired and exhausted. Not just that, but he was a heavy smoker, and it made the situation worse. My sisters had a bad feeling that something bad had happened because they were expecting a call notifying them that everything was alright. They didn't get one, so they came back to the room and figured out what happened. His face turned purple and he looked like he was in bad shape. We didn't let Adriel know until months after. Thursday of that week was a continuation of Adriel's suffering when he found out that his grandfather was going to die. It was a cloudy day, and Adriel didn't know about it until noon when he arrived there. Everyone was crying and hugging each other in a circle we formed around his hospital bed. I will never forget when I saw Adriel kneeling on his knees and his face full of tears. My brother took Adriel to Starbucks to get him distracted. When my brother brought my son back to the hospital, they were both hugging each other and they were crying together. Adriel said, "That sucks," and his uncle said, "I know." As we prayed the rosary, we didn't want my dad to pray out loud because his oxygen level would drop. "Padre nuestro que estás en el cielo," he would say. He still prayed out loud no matter how much we told him. The rest of Adriel's cousins came later to the hospital after they were done with school to hear the unexpected news. Every one of them were crying, and all of this broke our hearts. Having to see one or more of your children suffer is one of the hardest things about being an adult. I tried my hardest to be there for all of them as they were experiencing this tragedy. The next day they brought him home and everyone was able to see him. It was nighttime, so everyone went to sleep right away. I remember seeing Adriel sleep on the couch. I knew that he wasn't going to rest until his grandpa did. That day everyone woke up and many people came to visit. It was a bright sunny day that day. I remember recording Adriel talking to his grandfather the second to last time he talked to him. I was surprised that Adriel didn't cry. He promised his grandfather that he will take care of his grandmother and that he will be a good kid. He said, "Yo voy a cuidar a mi abuelita," which means I'll take care of my grandma. His grandfather replied, "Sí, yo creo que sí," which means, "Yes, I know you will." I told my dad that Adriel will eventually be getting married and will start his own family. Later that day, Adriel came back to his grandpa's house from a soccer game he played. He told his grandfather, We won by a lot and I scored a goal." His grandfather replied in astonishment, "Good for you, Adriel." That would be the last time Adriel talked to his grandfather. The following day changed everyone's life forever. I called my husband early in the morning to tell him that my dad had just died. He went back home to tell our kids about what happened, and it was only the second time they saw him in tears. Adriel told me that he was crying and hugging his little brother after he told him what had happened. The boys and their father came quickly to their grandparents' house, only to see that their grandfather had already passed. There were people everywhere, and as soon as my son came in, I asked him, "Do you know what happened?" He said yes, but wasn't crying. I led him into the room, and he saw his grandfather. He was as light as snow and looked like he had powder all over his face. I told Adriel to go talk to him one more time, since dead people could still hear things a few minutes after they passed away. I told Adriel to cry with me and to hug me too. He hugged me, but I was still afraid that he wasn't crying. I thought that because they were so close that he'd be crying, but not one drop of tears came down running from his cheek. An hour later, the coroners were there to pick up his body. They came into his room, and we had front row seats when we saw him leave. The viewing was hard because it was one of the last times Adriel saw his body. Adriel felt comforted when he saw how many people were there to be with him. All of his cousins showed how much of a friend Adriel is to them, and he enjoyed their company. The following day was the funeral. We woke up early in the morning to go see his grandfather in the casket for the last time. We drove to the spot where he'd get buried, and Adriel stood there as he saw his friend get put into his casket. He began crying, and his uncle went next to him and gave him a big hug. All of his cousins were now crying with him. Adriel's uncle, Tío Pepe, said in Spanish, "Un aplauso para la legacía de Don Francisco." Let's give a round of applause for Francisco's legacy. And everyone started clapping. The following year, Adriel was failing 4 classes: Algebra 2, World History, English, and Chemistry. I did whatever I could to help him out. He couldn't concentrate on school at all because he couldn't believe that his grandfather wasn't there for him anymore. I would learn content on my own to try to help him understand the course material. He didn't end up failing Algebra 2 because I helped him with it. The following semester, I saw an improvement in his work ethic, and he started the semester failing a few classes, but he made them up and even went to summer school to finish the semester of World History that he failed. Then, next year, in both semesters, he sacrificed a lot of things. Sleep was something he needed more of because he was always working on something. He would stay up late, wake up early in the morning, or do both to make sure that he finished whatever he needed to finish for that day. I really admired how much effort he put into his classwork and preparing for quizzes, tests, and finals. He earned a 3.5 and a 3.2 that year, and his work paid off.
How is your worldview different from your son's worldview?
I feel like my worldview is different from my son's because my son is a very caring young man. He's always there for everybody. He's always asking people when they're down, why they're down. But in this case, it had to be me that had to be there for everyone else because I'm a mother and I had to show how much I care about my son.
How would your story have been different if it was written from your perspective?
Well, if it was written from my perspective, I would include everything that happened as soon as he started caring about his grades. Whenever he came home, my objective was to go to his room and check up on him and see what he would be doing for the day. I would also have him include in the story about everything that he sacrificed in order to get the success that he had. For example, I took away his phone for all the semester. He would sleep less because he would rather finish homework and stuff like that.
How much of what your son said is true and how much of it isn't?
I believe that everything that Adriel said and described about the tragedies that happened are true because everything that he felt and experienced, I also felt and also experienced. His facial expressions, I feel like play a big part in how people see him as a person because he might be looking mad, but he's not mad. Like if I would be writing this story, I would write how like some people also misinterpret how he feels inside.
This brings us to the end of the podcast. Thank you for your time and may you have a pleasant rest of your day.